He calmly walked into the Civil Affairs Bureau, not even sparing a glance for the man beside her who was about to become her husband. The process went smoothly, and in her hand, she now held a dazzlingly red marriage certificate. She put away the marriage certificate and walked out of the Civil Affairs Bureau first. The man asked from behind, "Do you regret it?" Without turning her head, he replied, "No need to. If I regretted it, I wouldn't have come with you. But if you regret it, once the fuss dies down, I can come and divorce you anytime." The man said with certainty, "Marriage isn't a game. I'm serious. So that day will never come." Hiyu's eyes darkened slightly. "We'll talk about that later. Thank you for bailing me out." The man smiled faintly, pressing his lips together. "You're welcome. I do need a wife. So let's consider it mutual assistance." Nowadays, many people marry simply out of need, practical needs, physiological needs, or even just for appearances, to avoid gossip if they haven't married by a certain age. Hiyu wasn't one of those women who couldn't marry off by a certain age. After all, she was only 21, very young, and had just graduated from university, still thinking of going abroad for further studies. But perhaps that chance was gone now. The man gestured for Hiyu to get in the car. Hiyu, for once, looked at him, then coldly refused. "No need. I'll take a taxi back." Her aloofness, pushing people 1,000 miles away, didn't faze him. Go back where? To the He family? How will you explain it? That you were dumped by me right after getting married? Or will you continue living with the He family and let them make fun of you? Hiyu's heart sank abruptly. That home. She couldn't go back to it anymore. The man, on his own accord, got into the driver's seat and looked at Hiyu outside through the car window. "I don't care why you agreed to marry me, but now I am your husband, and I will take responsibility for you." Since it was already a done deal, what was the point of going back? Only then did Hiyu get into the passenger seat. "Thank you. Could you please help me move?" The man fastened his seatbelt, started the car, and drove towards Iha Mountain Villa, one of Linjiang City's affluent residential areas. Neither of them spoke the entire way, one focused on driving, the other staring blankly at the bustling traffic outside the window. More than an hour ago, at Iha Mountain Villa, Hiyu was at her uncle He Jiaqiang's house, engaged to Li Junyi, her boyfriend of 3 years. A strange text message made her unexpectedly discover his affair with her cousin, He Qingwan. She learned the true purpose of his engagement. He merely wanted to use it to get her body. She had thought she was being cheated on, but it turned out she had suddenly become the mistress, seducing her future brother-in-law while her cousin was studying abroad. He Qingwan and Li Junyi reconciled, and the entire He family was beaming with joy. At her engagement banquet, the male lead hadn't changed, but the female lead engaged to him had become He Qingwan, while she herself had become a laughingstock. At the most awkward moment, a strange man suddenly stepped forward and proposed to her. He had neither flowers nor a ring, just one sentence. "Miss Hiyu, your name Hiyu. What an encounter, truly suits you. How fortunate we are to meet in this life. Others may have had eyes but failed to recognize the jade inlaid in gold, so might you give me a chance to marry you." At these words, the entire room erupted in an uproar, and even Hiyu herself was stunned. The He family's business was small. They had only just managed to buy a townhouse in this affluent area, solely to build connections and open up their market. The Li family, on the other hand, was a business magnate in Linjiang City and precisely the target of the He family's flattery. The engagement banquet, as per custom, was held at the bride's family home. Those present were all prominent figures who had come to show respect to the Li family. They didn't recognize this man, though one minor figure knew his identity. His name was Mu Qianfan, and he was the CEO of Starlight Media. He Jianhao, He Qingwan's elder brother, heard this and sneered disdainfully. "What's this? Just the CEO of Starlight Media? I thought he was some young master from a prominent family." Someone seized the opportunity to curry favor with the Li family, echoing sarcastically, "Just a small company, completely beneath young Master Li's notice. To dare to stand out like this, he's practically asking for death." The young Master Li, they referred to as Li Junyi, who had an elder brother named Li Yuankai, known as First Young Master, and a sister named Li Shuei, the Li family's only young Mississippi. Others gloated. To dare to cross the Li family, there's no way he can establish himself in Linjiang City now. He'd better pack his bags and get lost before he loses everything. Mu Qianfan's sudden proposal timely rescued Hiyu from her predicament, publicly humiliating Li Junyi. Coupled with these sarcastic remarks, Li Junyi's expression became very ugly. He was a little worried. Li Junyi was wealthy and influential but narrow-minded, petty and calculating. Had it not been for the sake of the He family, there was no way she would have accepted his pursuit and been with him. Sure enough, Li Junyi immediately sneered at Mu Qianfan. "I heard you're a CEO, at least. Don't you feel ashamed picking up my discarded worn-out shoe in front of so many people?" Worn-out shoe. Mu Qianfan chuckled mockingly. Young Masterly, have you forgotten? It seems you've never actually worn this pair of shoes, have you? Isn't the real worn-out shoe standing right beside you? He Qingwan, dressed to the nines, frowned and clenched her fists. Had it not been for her concern for her status and image, she would have long ago slapped anyone who dared to publicly mock and insult her. She filed this grudge away, vowing to repay it someday. Though being compared to a shoe made Hugh uncomfortable, Mu Qianfan was forced by the situation to play along with Li Junyi's words. She didn't blame him, and even thanked him for helping her see Li Junyi's true colors more clearly. Li Junyi, as the heir apparent of the Li Group, whose stomp could send tremors through Linjiang City's entire economy, flew into a rage and publicly issued a dire threat. If you dare marry her, I'll make sure you go bankrupt. Mu Qianfan ignored Li Junyi, instead turning to Hiyu and saying earnestly, Miss Hiyu heard that, didn't you? It seems I'm about to go bankrupt for marrying you. How do you feel about this dowry? Hiyu glanced at Li Junyi, then at He Qingwan, her gaze passing through her and finally landing on He Jiaqiang and Zhang Xiuwen, her parents, sensing their seething rage. Clearly, there was no longer any place for her in this family. This was her best chance to leave openly and honorably. By going with Mu Qianfan, she could gain her freedom. So she agreed. The dowry is good. Let's get married. Li Junyi was absolutely furious, roaring wrathfully. Bitch, you dare. Hiyu's cold gaze met Li Junyi's indignant fury. A bitch doesn't dare, but I do. Mu Qianfan confidently took Hiyu's slightly cool hand, a wild, unrestrained smile on his face. You dare to marry, I dare to wed. What's wrong with that? Hiyu wasn't used to such contact and subconsciously struggled, but Mu Qianfan tightened his grip, giving her a firm look. Only then did she reluctantly stop resisting. Seeing this, He Qingwan felt an inexplicable discomfort in her heart, her eyes stinging slightly at their clasped hands. She feigned kindness and said, Suyu, are you very familiar with him? Don't gamble your own happiness out of spite. Before Hiyu could answer, Mu Qianfan grandly declared his lifelong promise to Hiyu. You don't need to worry about that. I will ensure her happiness, and I will be responsible for the rest of her life. When Mu Qianfan and Hiyu arrived at the He family's residence, the banquet had already ended. Servants were still cleaning the hall. As soon as they reached the second floor, they were blocked in the hallway by all four members of the He family. He Jiacheng pointed at Hiyu's nose and questioned her sharply. What are you doing back here? You've completely disgraced our He family. He Qingwan, feigning kindness, interjected. Dad, don't say that. We're a family, isn't it normal for her to come back? Let's sit down and talk properly if there's something to discuss. Hiyu remained silent. Today, not only had she discovered He Qingwan's infidelity, but she had also learned that it was a family conspiracy. This truth had extinguished her last shred of affection. Mu Qianfan cast a cold glance at them. You know very well whether you consider her family or not, but from now on, you are no longer qualified to claim kinship with her. She is already my wife. His gaze was icy, his demeanor arrogant, and his tone domineering, which stunned them all. While they were still in a daze, he gently took Hiyu's hand. Hiyu instinctively struggled, but he held her even tighter. His grip was so strong that she couldn't break free and had no choice but to let him lead her. He only released her once they reached her room to pack her belongings. The He family knew that once Hiyu moved out, she wouldn't come back and they didn't want to keep her. However, they wanted to keep one thing, her mother He Anren's ring. They stopped Hiyu in the living room. He Jiaqiang, glancing sidelong at Mu Qianfan who was dragging a suitcase, asked, Hiyu, are you sure you want to leave with this wild man? Have you forgotten how your mother died? Hiyu, usually calm, became a little agitated. You are not allowed to mention my mother and he is not a wild man, he is my lawful husband. Lawful husband? Mu Qianfan's lips twitched slightly. She had acknowledged his identity. Happiness had come faster than he had imagined. This feeling was good, and he liked it very much. Zhang Xiuwen wrinkled her nose and snorted coldly. Lawful husband? A daughter married off is like water poured out. Since you're no longer part of the He family, leave behind what belongs to our He family. He snatched the suitcase, opened it in a fit of anger, and pointed at the change of clothes and daily necessities inside. Open your eyes wide and see clearly. I bought all of these with my own money. He Jianhao gazed lecherously at Hiyu's chest. My mom didn't mean your junk. She meant what's on your neck. That belongs to our family. This isn't yours. Hiyu immediately grabbed the ring underneath her clothes. This was the most important thing her mother had left her, very likely a gift from her father. Give it to me. He Jianhao didn't want to waste words with Hiyu and directly reached out to snatch the ring. Is my wife someone you can touch? And you dare to steal her belongings? You're practically asking for death. Mu Qianfan landed several punches on He Jianhao's face, and a pig-like squeal immediately echoed through the hall. He Jianhao, still yelling, swung his fists back in retaliation. Damn it, you dare to hit me? What are you? I'm the future brother-in-law of the second young master of the Li family. You're the one asking for death. Seeing her son getting beaten, Zhang Xiuwen shrieked and rushed forward to scratch Mu Qianfan. I don't even have the heart to hit my own son, yet you dare to strike him? I'll fight you to the death. Mu Qianfan lifted his long leg and kicked, sending Zhang Xiuwen flying. She landed, clutching her stomach and wailing. He Qing'an quickly ran over. Mom? Are you alright? He Jiaqiang seized the opportunity to sneak behind Mu Qianfan, grabbed a chair, and swung it at him. He couldn't intervene in time and could only shout a warning. Mu Qianfan, watch out behind you. Mu Qianfan, upon hearing the sound, quickly dodged to the side, evading the sneak attack from behind. Then, with a graceful turn, before he had even fully stood still, his long leg shot out, kicking He Jiaqiang precisely in his lower body. Accompanied by a piercing wail, He Jiaqiang dropped the chair, clutching his crotch with both hands and screaming in pain. Ow. Mu Qianfan flashed a mischievous grin at Hiyu. Thanks, wifey. You're still the best to me. Then he apologized to He Jiaqiang. My apologies, I kicked too hastily and didn't aim properly. It went a bit off target. I'll be more careful next time. This was the first time Mu Qianfan had called Hiyu wifey. Hiyu's face flushed at the address. How could this man change so quickly? One moment, he was exuding powerful masculinity like a true man. The next, he was grinning playfully and seemed frivolous. He Jiaqiang, however, was so enraged by Mu Qianfan that his face turned green, and he panted like an ox. This brat was truly too arrogant to insult him like this. He swore he wouldn't be a man if he didn't get his revenge. Just then Mu Qianfan, having finished his work, added another comment. Wifey, see? Long legs are great. You can kick wherever you want. And with these shoes, I guarantee it hurts wherever you kick. And did it hurt? Zhang Xiuwen was still clutching her stomach and groaning, and He Jiaqiang's hands hadn't left his crotch. He was sweating cold beads on his forehead from the pain, even wondering if his functions down there were still intact. He Jianhao, lying on the ground, yelled at the stunned He Qingwan. What are you still standing there for? Why aren't you calling young Master Li to come save us? Do you want to watch us get beaten to death? He Qingwan belatedly reached for her phone. Mu Qianfan darted forward, snatched her phone, casually smashed it onto the ground, then stomped on it a few times, leaving He Qingwan staring blankly. What kind of man was this? Wasn't he just a minor CEO? How did he seem even more imposing than that young Master Li Junyi? If not for wanting to maintain her ladylike image in front of others, she would have scratched his face. But then again, his face was too handsome. She'd be reluctant to actually scratch it. Perhaps she should just take him for herself first. After all, she had stolen plenty of things from Hiyu before, and it wouldn't be the first time she stole her man. Hiyu looked at the room full of the injured and infirm, thinking of everything Mu Qianfan had just done for her. A strange warmth bloomed in her heart. And what warmed her heart even more was his next sentence. How you treated her in the past, I couldn't control. But if you dare to bully her now, don't blame me for being impolite. If you cause trouble again, I'll settle all scores, old and new. Wifey, let's go home. The first part was arrogant in attitude and tone, but the second was filled with tender, doting words and a smile. He couldn't tell which one was the real him anymore. What kind of man had she truly married? Thank you. As soon as he stepped out of the He family's front door, she thanked Mu Qianfan. If he hadn't been there, the ring would definitely have been snatched by them. She hadn't expected them to dare to try and steal it again. They were truly becoming more shameless. Mu Qianfan raised an eyebrow at Hiyu. Earlier in the living room, what did you say I was to you? Hiyu immediately recalled that scene from earlier. Her face involuntarily flushed, and she whispered, my legal husband. Mu Qianfan said very seriously, I know you don't like me, but since we're married, we share honor and disgrace. Them bullying you is like slapping my face. I'm defending my own dignity. What are you thanking me for? His tone was too serious, his attitude too earnest. It made Hiyu reflect. Should she also face their relationship squarely and try to accept him and his identity? After all, it wasn't him who forced her into marriage, it was her choice. On the other side of the He family's main gate, Zhang Xiuwen was filled with regret. If I had known this, I should have asked them for the betrothal gifts. Now look, we've lost the wife and the soldiers too. He Jianhao was furious. It's all because of that lowlife you raised, that unloyal wretch, helping outsiders bully me. Qinghua, are you dead? You don't even know how to call for help. Do I have to remind you? He Qinghua was already seething with resentment. How is it that no sooner had she stolen Hiyu's man than another man immediately fell into Hiyu's lap? He Jinhao's accusation undoubtedly added fuel to the fire, and she erupted. With no outsiders present, she no longer needed to pretend to be a refined lady. She glared at He Jianhao and lashed out. Who are you calling dead? You're useless yourself, don't blame me. If you've got the guts, hit them back. What good is yelling at us? Zhang Xiuwen, feeling sorry for her son, chastised He Qinghua. How dare you speak like that? He's your brother. He Qinghua shrieked. So, what if he's my brother? If I had a choice, I'd rather not have a brother like him. Other men are powerful, but he's just a good for nothing. What else can he do besides taking his anger out on us? He Jianhao was enraged. Who are you calling a good for nothing? Say that again, if you dare. He Qinghua stood with her hands on her hips like a shrew. Good for nothing, good for nothing, good for nothing. Important things should be said 3 times. He Jiaqiang roared. All of you shut up. Others are walking all over us, and instead of thinking about revenge, you're bickering amongst yourselves? Do you not think you've been bullied enough? Zhang Xiuwen glared at her son and daughter, signaling them to be quiet, then helped He Jiaqiang to the sofa. Honey, what do you say we do? We'll all listen to you. He Jiaqiang's eyes glinted. Although family shame should not be aired, and we shouldn't let the Li family know about tonight's incident, that man has long offended second young Master Li. We can kill with a borrowed knife. He Qinghua smiled knowingly. I understand. I'll whisper more in second young Master Li's ear from now on. Hopefully, he'll wipe them out. He Jianhao also revived. Killing with a borrowed knife sounds great. It'll protect our He family's reputation, and let us deal with those 2 lowlifes to avenge tonight. Just remember to leave He Yu for me. He Qinghua frowned. You? Zhang Xiuwen not only didn't object but also reminded him with a smile. Don't forget to get the ring. In the car, Mu Qianfan drove and reminded He Yu. I don't think anyone in the He family is a good person. You should be careful from now on, and it's best to cut ties with them. He Yu already knew their true nature, and today she had seen their true colors completely. Even without knowing their specific schemes, she could guess they wouldn't give up so easily. But she was surprised that Mu Qianfan not only saw through them, but also proactively warned her. So she nodded. I know. You be careful too from now on. Mu Qianfan smiled confidently. They can't do anything to me. He Yu, however, shook her head. They are indeed nothing to worry about, but don't forget the Li family behind them. Today you offended Li Junyi for me, and he's already threatened to get revenge on you. Mu Qianfan glanced at He Yu, a slight curve on his handsome lips. Are you worrying about me? He Yu's heart skipped a beat, and she quickly lowered her head to avoid his gaze. You said it, we share honor and disgrace. Mu Qianfan chuckled softly, saying nothing more, his mind filled with only 2 words, papaya. Mu Qianfan owned a 3-bedroom apartment in Imperial View Mansion, but it had only 1 actual bedroom. The second bedroom was a study, and the guest room served as an office. This meant that if he were to stay, she would have to share a room with Mu Qianfan. He Yu, who was still struggling to fully accept her new identity, looked at Mu Qianfan and apologized. I'm sorry, Mr. Mu. Mu Qianfan immediately asked a question he had already posed at the Civil Affairs Bureau. Having second thoughts? He Yu shook her head. No, I just haven't mentally prepared myself yet. Mu Qianfan said nonchalantly. Don't worry. Although I'm serious and committed to being responsible for you now that we're married, I will respect your wishes and won't force you into anything. He Yu fell silent. She truly didn't know Mu Qianfan well. She had only agreed to marry him on a whim back then, unsure if he was a good person or a bad one. Yet he had always protected her. To protect herself and to assess his character, He Yu devised a plan. If he could meet her conditions, she would feel at ease spending her life with him, as she had never truly hoped for love anyway. She said indifferently, since you say that, let's agree on 3 main points. Mu Qianfan hadn't expected He Yu to easily accept and trust him, so he readily agreed. All right. He Yu thought for a moment. First, as you said, don't force me. I will adapt to my new identity and fulfill my obligations as soon as I can. Mu Qianfan nodded with a smile. No problem. He Yu paused and continued. Second, please respect me and don't casually meddle in my affairs. I will also give you your independent space. Mu Qianfan gave He Yu a meaningful look. Whatever makes you happy. He Yu pondered for a moment before stating the last point. Third, if either of us meets someone they truly like, please tell me. I will divorce you. However, within the marriage, we must never betray each other. Without a moment's hesitation, Mu Qianfan nodded solemnly. I agree. He Yu's 3 rules essentially boiled down to 9 words: no coercion, mutual respect, and no betrayal. Mu Qianfan's swift agreement left He Yu unsure whether to be pleased or concerned, but she believed time would prove everything. That evening, Mu Qianfan, understanding He Yu's thoughts, proactively said, You sleep in the bedroom. I'll take the sofa. It's late. Go in and rest. He Yu looked at the living room sofa, imagining Mu Qianfan awkwardly squeezing himself into it. She couldn't bear the thought. Perhaps I should sleep in the living room instead. Mu Qianfan shook his head. There's clearly a bed in the house. As a man, how can I possibly let my wife sleep on the sofa? He explained, it's fine. I'm shorter than you. Mu Qianfan thought for a moment. Do you remember the first rule of our agreement? We're not just staying for a day or two, so why not give me a chance to prove myself? He frowned and hesitated for a moment, but eventually, she nodded. It would be good to figure him out sooner rather than later. Mu Qianfan's home surprisingly only had one set of bedding, meaning he not only had to share a bed with him but also lie under the same blanket. The moment she lay down, her body stiffened. In the dead of night, only their breathing could be heard in the spacious bedroom. He caught a whiff of pheromones, growing increasingly distinct, so she edged closer to the side of the bed. Mu Qianfan pretended to be nonchalant and reminded her, move any further and you'll fall off. Don't worry, while I'm no Lu Xiaohui, I won't eat you. People often talk about sitting on pins and needles, but she was literally lying on them. The day had already been long enough, and this night felt endlessly agonizing. What she didn't realize was that, despite Mu Qianfan's light-hearted words, he was actually suffering even more than she was. The next day, he woke up and didn't see Mu Qianfan. She only found a note on the nightstand saying that he had an urgent business trip for a few days and wouldn't be back until next week. Seeing the note, he suddenly breathed a sigh of relief. It was fine if he wasn't around. She could take the opportunity to familiarize herself with the environment and learn how to be a competent wife. In truth, however, Mu Qianfan had deliberately left Hugh time and space to adapt, getting up before dawn to leave the note and going to the company to pretend he was on a business trip. He worked as a director's assistant at Jiren Fashion Company, but she was willing to be an assistant purely because Director Yang Yi was the best designer in the entire company, and she wanted to learn from him. Yang Yi was notoriously bad-tempered. He would curse anyone he didn't like, having driven away many employees. Because he was a company partner, even the boss, Zhao Dongliang, couldn't do anything about him. He's low-key personality suited Yang Yi's temper well, and the two worked together seamlessly. Because of his regard, colleagues were outwardly polite to Hiyu, but privately said she used men to climb the ladder. But setting aside these negative remarks, Hiyu still enjoyed her work. It used to be her happiest and most fulfilling time of the day. However, this situation had now changed. Because she had become someone's wife and had her own home, to be a responsible wife, she uncharacteristically didn't work overtime after work these past few days, instead going to the mall to buy kitchen supplies. Although Mu Qianfan's house had a kitchen and a refrigerator, it lacked cooking utensils and ingredients. Traditionally, housework was the wife's responsibility, so even though he disliked being in the kitchen, she had no choice but to try. Taking advantage of the weekend, she also explored the nearby area to familiarize herself with the surroundings and know where to buy groceries later. But before Mu Qianfan returned, something major happened at the company, and it concerned her. Today, the company had a new product launch, with models invited for a fashion show. The partner was Huimei Talent Agency, a subsidiary of Li Group, headed by Li Xue. He Qingwan also worked at that company. Such a collaboration didn't require Li Xue to come in person, yet she brought He Qingwan along. Hiyu had a very bad premonition when she saw them, and coincidentally, she had to be in charge of the launch event with Yang Yi. While busy, He Qingwan suddenly approached Yang Yi in high heels. Director Yang, our director Li has something to say regarding this launch event. Could you go over for a moment? Although Yang Yi had a bad temper, he knew how to prioritize matters and immediately replied, okay, I'll go right now. Hiyu, keep a close eye on the rest of the matters. Yes, Director Yang. He responded, then saw He Qingwan smile with a malicious look on her face, making her feel even more uneasy. The He family certainly wouldn't let go of what happened that day. Sure enough, Yang Yi soon returned furiously, shouting as he walked, on what grounds? When did it become your turn to dictate how my company's employees work? When Yang Yi lost his temper, even Zhao Dongliang didn't dare to go near him, but Hugh had no choice but to ask him, Director Yang, what happened? Is there a problem with the launch event? Yang Yi looked at Hugh with a gloomy face. No, they want the company to fire you. Otherwise, today's launch event won't proceed. That woman actually dared to threaten me. Hugh lowered her gaze, never expecting the retaliation to come so quickly and so fiercely. The first thing they wanted to do was cut off her financial lifeline. He Qingwan caught up from behind. Director Yang, this concerns your launch event today, and it will affect your sales for the entire next quarter. You'd better think carefully. Yang Yi turned and glared angrily at He Qingwan. I don't need your ill-intentioned reminder. I know why we're having this launch event, but it's not your place to tell me what to do. He Qingwan's face turned pale with rage. This is all for your own good. Don't refuse a polite offer only to face a penalty. If you anger Ms. Li, do you believe she'll immediately take her models and leave? Yang Yi sneered. Believe it? Of course I believe it. Didn't you just remind me that you're backed by the Lee Group, a big tree offering good shade, so you don't care about such a small loss? He knew they were primarily targeting her, and the company was being implicated because of her. And He Chingwan was right. Today's press conference would directly impact next quarter sales. So she stepped forward. Mr. Yang, you can fire me, or I can resign myself. All they want is for me to leave the company, so I'll go. Yang Yi refused firmly and righteously. No, this isn't just about you. This concerns our company's decision-making sovereignty. Our company is not anyone else's appendage. Hi's attitude was equally resolute. She put down what she was doing. Mr. Yang, I've made up my mind. Li Shui suddenly appeared. Actually, you don't necessarily have to leave. You can also join my models on stage for the runway show. What did you say? He Qingwan exclaimed, even her form of address changing. Shui, how can you let her stay? She publicly shamed the second young master earlier. Li Shui gave a cold smile and beckoned He Qingwan over. When He Qingwan approached, she leaned in and whispered, wouldn't it be better to let her make a fool of herself on the runway? He Qingwan giggled, covering her mouth. You're so clever. We can take plenty of videos and photos then, and send them to that wretched man. Even if it doesn't kill him with anger, it'll annoy him to no end. Their voices were low, and there was some distance, so He couldn't hear what they were saying, but she guessed it couldn't be anything good. She refused to go on the runway and insisted on resigning. With their plan for revenge in place, how could they let her off easily? Unable to deal with He directly, and Yang Yi proving impervious to both soft and hard tactics, they approached Zhao Dongliang, asking him to mediate with his employee. Zhao Dongliang was much more amenable than Yang Yi. He hadn't even finished packing her things in the office when he came to stop her and led her into his office. With a troubled expression, he pleaded with her. Hiyu, I'm begging you, please do me a favor. Our company's performance is really poor, and it wasn't easy to arrange this launch event. Hiyu usually had little interaction with Zhao Dongliang. She said expressionlessly. Don't they want me to leave? I'm doing as they wish now, so why is it still not okay? Zhao Dongliang sighed. Women's minds are unfathomable. I don't know what they truly want. Now they're adamant that you must go on stage, otherwise, they'd rather break the contract and pay compensation. Hiyu had long guessed their intention. She had never received model training and had no idea how to walk a runway. They clearly wanted her to publicly humiliate herself, so there was no way she would agree. Zhao Dongliang pleaded with Hiyu in every way, piling on the pleas and constantly complaining. I'm serious. If this blows up, the company will go bankrupt and so many employees will lose their jobs. Hiyu knew this whole situation was her fault, but she didn't want to fulfill He Qingwan and Li Shui's wishes. She could only apologize. I'm truly sorry, but I'm not a saint. I don't have that kind of sympathy. Seeing her attitude was so firm, Zhao Dongliang was too embarrassed to plead further. Just then, Yang Yi, learning he had intercepted Hiyu, rushed over to save the situation. Yang Yi didn't even knock, bursting directly into the CEO's office. Old Zhao, what are you doing? They've already slapped your left cheek. Are you going to willingly offer your right one for them to hit too? Zhao Dongliang's anger was also considerable. Then what am I supposed to do? Do you think I actually enjoy humiliating myself like this? The company's poor performance is secondary. The most important thing is that all of this is your hard work. To design the new products, Yang Yi had spent months drawing day and night. Sometimes, when his inspiration ran dry, he would anxiously pull out handfuls of hair. Hiyu, as his assistant, had witnessed all of this. Yang Yi was choked by Zhao Dongliang's words. How could he possibly want to see his painstaking efforts ruined? But equally, he didn't want their company to be controlled by outsiders. This feeling was truly awful. What he especially didn't want was to ultimately have to sacrifice a woman to protect himself. So he said firmly, this is my business, and I'll take responsibility for it myself. I'll figure out a way to handle the capital turnover. Zhao Dongliang slammed his hand heavily on the desk. What other way can you think of? The house was mortgaged long ago, and all that's left is that beat-up car nobody wants. Are we really going to borrow from loan sharks, just to pay salaries? Yang Yi threw his head back. Loan sharks, then loan sharks. Knowing full well they're deliberately making things difficult, they want me, a grown man, to climb up by stepping on a woman? I can't do it. Zhao Dongliang raised his voice. Why go to such lengths? It hasn't come to that yet. They've agreed to let us cooperate with the Lee Group. With sales, we can solve our urgent problems. He listened to their argument in silence, then suddenly said, I agree. Zhao Dongliang and Yang Yi, in the middle of their argument, both froze. They looked at Hiyu, then heard her say, tell them, I'll see this through to the end. Yang Yi, recovering from his shock, sternly interjected. What are you trying to prove? This is clearly aimed at me because I previously rejected the Lee Group's invitation. The Lee group had recognized Yang Yi's talent and wanted to poach him. When that failed, they tried to acquire the company, but both attempts were rejected. He didn't want to become anyone's subordinate. The reason he had caught their attention was precisely due to the collaboration for this product launch. Had the contract not already been signed, they wouldn't have cooperated with Huime Company. Although Hiyu had only just learned these details herself, she clenched her fist and told Yang Yi the truth. You're wrong. They're not really targeting you, but me. You. Yang Yi scoffed in disbelief, immediately switching to his sharp-tongued mode. Who do you think you are, to even catch their eye? Don't overestimate yourself, showing off pointlessly here. Hiyu only offered one explanation. He Qingwan is my cousin, and Li Xue is my ex-boyfriend's twin sister. I know better than you what they're thinking, and what their intentions are. W. Zhao Donglian's eyes widened in shock, his tongue tripping over itself. You are? This is bad. It seems truly hopeless this time. Getting involved with them means the company is finished. Hiyu ultimately went to the runway, as Li Xue wished. Because the new product line happened to include lingerie, Li Xue deliberately assigned Hiyu to be in charge of the lingerie show, and her temporary assistant was He Qingwan. He Qingwan stood with her arms crossed, looking at Hiyu. You know we're here to cause trouble for you today, right? Why haven't you called your man to kick some ass? I actually miss those long legs of his. Hiyu ignored her. For people like He Qingwan, she felt even speaking to them was a waste of breath. However, He Qingwan's mention did genuinely make her think of Mu Qianfan. Seeing Hiyu's cold demeanor, He Qingwan became furious. She reached out and gave Hiyu's backside a hard pinch. Keep up your pretense of aloofness. Let's see how long you can keep it up. That pinch immediately squeezed Mu Qianfan right out of Hiyu's mind. If Mu Qianfan knew, he'd probably be so furious he'd want to kick her to death, given how rare it was for his madam to think of him. Because of her height, Hiyu never wore high heels. She wouldn't even know how to walk in them. He Qingwan knew she couldn't wear high heels and deliberately gave her a pair of sky-high stilettos. The shoes were also extremely ill-fitting. They were a bit too small for Hiyu. She practically had to force her feet into them. Already unstable in high heels, this made her even more wobbly. Taking advantage of the time before going on stage, Hiyu practiced walking backstage. A model saw her about to fall and kindly reached out to help her. Be careful. Before she could finish her sentence, there was a sharp slap. He Qingwan slapped the model across the face. Who told you to be meddlesome? You're about to go on stage, go prepare. The model didn't dare to look at He Qingwan, hastily covering her throbbing face and running off. He looked at He Qingwan coldly. You knew we were about to go on stage and you hit her face. You did it on purpose, didn't you? Because at your height, you don't even qualify to be a model. You can only envy others. He Qingwan's biggest weakness was her short stature. Barely over 1.6 meters tall, she looked even shorter standing next to Hiyu. This was the initial reason Li Junyi disliked her, and also why she hated Hiyu. Stung by the remark, He Qingwan gritted her teeth in anger. So, what if you're tall? You'll still be trampled under my feet. I'll step on you however I want. I'll stomp you to death. Hiyu ignored her, using every second to practice walking backstage. If only she had known this day would come, she would have learned to wear high heels occasionally. Then she wouldn't be humiliating herself now. On the vast T-stage, the lights were dazzling. Below, Li Xue and several clients watching the show were seated, along with many photographers. As soon as the models appeared, flashbulbs began to fire. Lingerie, a woman's essential, is normal for models to wear in a show, but now for Hiyu, it was a garment of shame, a price paid for that day. Hiyu walked onto the stage in the ill-fitting stilettos. Apart from her extremely unprofessional gait, her towering height alone immediately drew attention. During the short walk, while others moved with practiced ease, Hiyu stumbled several times, almost falling, which undoubtedly attracted more attention. Yang Yi, watching from below, frowned deeply. What shocked everyone even more was that as Hiyu turned on stage, her bra strap suddenly broke. Then she fell flat on her face on the stage, her lingerie almost completely coming off. Hiyu tightly clutched her lingerie with both hands, and amidst a flurry of camera flashes, she turned to glare resentfully at He Qingwan in the audience. This scene was clearly no accident. It had been deliberately orchestrated by He Qingwan. A brand new bra strap couldn't just suddenly break, and although she couldn't walk well in high heels, someone had clearly tripped her intentionally, causing her to fall. Seeing this, Yang Yi immediately rushed up, took off his suit jacket and draped it over Hiyu, then scooped her up in his arms. As he touched her smooth, delicate skin. At that moment, Yang Yi's thoughts were complex, but he still publicly carried Hiyu backstage. However, this whole farce didn't really affect today's fashion show. With Li Xue stepping forward to speak, the show could simply restart. Hiyu thanked Yang Yi, changed her clothes, and hurried away. She didn't want to give anyone another chance to humiliate her, nor did she want to cry in front of people, letting them see her weakness. Tears were a sign of weakness. She didn't need sympathy or pity. Even if she wanted to cry, she had to find a place where no one would see her, like Mu Qianfan's home. Hiyu held back her tears all the way home, then rushed into her bedroom, buried her head in the quilt, and sobbed uncontrollably. She didn't regret agreeing to the show, she only regretted that her guard wasn't high enough. This wasn't because she was a saint, it was simply because she had caused the trouble, attracted the attention, and felt responsible for it, unwilling to implicate the company or harm Yang Yi.